What's up, everyone? Today we have a Honda here. It's a EV6500, and owner says it's not starting. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to. Usually we don't work on Hondas. They're quite reliable, so it's obviously probably a fuel issue. Knock on wood, of course, very well could just be something bad. But it's not an inverter, so it is a fairly common generator. I have not done a single thing to it. The only thing I've done is the owner told me what was wrong. Said it was not starting. And I think we're just going to go through the paces and see what exactly that means. So yeah, we'll go ahead and continue on with that. On a side note, I did, however, get a new camera because my old one took a dump on me. So excuse me. Go ahead and leave me a comment below and see if you can tell a difference in quality, audio quality, video quality, anything else. My editing, I get it, still a little rough, but still. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So, I suppose what we should do is see if it cranks. I guess before we start that though, let's see if there's any oil. Where's the dipstick on this thing? Oh, up here. Wow, it's not super tight on there. That's amazing. Usually it's pretty rough. There is oil, and it looks like it's relatively new and fresh. It does appear to have a low oil sensor. At least I think that's what that is. And yeah, suppose what we will do is circuit breakers on, throttle set to auto, does not start with the key whatsoever, doesn't even have a battery. So far, I'm not seeing a battery. Is it back here? There is no battery. Unless it's behind the control panel, which I suppose it could be. There's something. I don't know. Interesting. Well, I suppose our next course of action is just to go ahead and give it a pull. Now, fortunately, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of this, but just imagine yourself pulling on something. You know what would help? I'll show you this too. There's not a drop of fuel in there. So we very well might have a very basic video here. And to be honest, that's fine with me because I just want to post something with my new camera. Let's go ahead and put some non-ethanol fuel. It's about 1/4 of an inch off the bottom. I have no idea how much that is. It looks like it could be potentially a 5-gallon tank. Maybe 4.5. Being a Honda, it's probably measured in liters. So whatever, let's see, 3.8 liters to a gallon. Usually it's 5-gallon tank. That's a little bit under a little under 20 liters. In addition to that, the fuel, I do believe, is set to off. So, let's give it a moment or two. I think this is the choke. While we're waiting for it to fill up the bowl a little bit, see what the filter looks like. Filter, especially these filters, when they get old, they just start to like fall apart. This, however, actually looks very good. It's oiled, which is a good thing. These always seem to be oiled. Another good thing about this camera, it has a little viewing screen in the front, so when I'm looking at it like this, I can actually get maybe some of this stuff on frame. It's amazing. For reference, I went from a GoPro 8 to a GoPro 12. Originally I was going to do 11, but it's $50 more, and what's the point of saving $50 to be one generation behind already, you know? And luckily for you guys, or because of you guys, I get paid a little bit every month, so it didn't really cost me anything. So thank you. Oh boy. Something tells me it might not be fuel. That had very little to no compression. Kind of sounded like it wanted to. So that's not good. There's new oil in there, which is worrisome because new oil will usually mean, oh no, I was running my generator, I forgot to put oil in there, it stopped running. I'm going to put a little oil in, make sure, and then I'm going to take it to the repairman. Ah, of course. It's one of these. How difficult is it to take this part off? It's not easy. Let's see if any of that went in there. So I do know some of it went in there. I think what I'm going to do next is we're going to jack it up, and then we will go ahead and look at the valves. I think that would be a good first stop here. Just in case you're unaware of why I'm checking the valves. So the valves can go out of adjustment, and if they go out of adjustment, they can be left open. Cover your ears, by the way. It's 10 millimeter. And with it left open, you're going to get little to no compression. So ideally, what we have here is just a set of bad or poorly adjusted valves, or I guess I should say out of adjustment valves. They're not really bad. I guess they could be bad. I don't know what their past is. So what we're going to do is we are going to disconnect the spark plug because we don't want this to start while we are doing this. Granted, it wasn't starting to begin with, but trust me, if stuff can go wrong while working with stuff that can injure you, it usually does. And let's give it a pull. See where it is in its stroke. Kind of feels like the valve, it feels like it gained compression. Or it could be the fact that I was pulling on it faster. Well, that's super loose. What is this motor? I don't really know. Usually on the side of a Honda, it will tell you the displacement so you can kind of gauge on what it is. Luckily, the displacements are usually roughly the 389 cubic centimeters cc's. So that is a GX390. So I don't know what the spec is for a GX390. That seems a little excessive. I know you can't really tell, but it's pretty loose. We have looked it up, and it is as follows. The intake, which is going to be the one closest to the carburetor, is supposed to be at 6 thousandths of an inch. And that, for the metric folk out there, 0.15 of a millimeter. Oh, actually, it's tight. Man, that's weird. Well, just for general knowledge, let's pull it over. I don't like that. So, oh yeah, even that. Oh no, there we go. That is a 6, and it's going in there just fine. So let's bump it up to what it should be, which is an 8. Now there's a tolerance of plus or minus a little bit here. Actually, that feels really good. The exhaust, I'm not going to worry about one bit. Let's go ahead and move this over again. There we go. Let's try 6 again. Maybe I just got hung up on something. I am kind of going from the wrong side. Oh yeah, I just got hung up. I think our next course is I'm going to take the plug out, and I'm going to then take a look. Actually, I'm just going to put a little starting fluid down there, and then I'll put the plug back in. But we're going to look at the plug too, and we're going to check for spark. Spark on a generator, while it's important for all machines, not going to lie, is one of the very first things to kind of go because of their safeties they have in there. That gap looks a little big to me. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to put the cover back on, and then we're going to check for spark. Look. I didn't measure the gap yet, but we'll find out if it doesn't do anything. No spark. No spark at all. So let's make sure we're on. That's on. Switch. I don't know if that was set to on or off. Right now it's like in the middle of like start. Let's see if that has anything to help with. There is spark, but it's pretty weak. I'm going to re-gap that plug and check and see, but just in case, I'm going to shove a little bit of starting fluid down there, and we'll give it. It was way open, by the way. It was roughly 50% more. So, let's give it a try. Let's see, is this fuel on? Oh, that's fuel on. Well, I guess we know. We're going to see if we have any carb issues now. Very well could have been a poorly gapped plug. I probably will call the owner and see if it's been having problems earlier, because that looked pretty dark, the plug. I'm waiting for the bowl to fill up, by the way. And that could be poor combustion or rich. Maybe you had to run it with the choke on. Don't know. Let's give it a try. Pull the choke. No choke. Now we need to do the carb. So let's take a look here. Looks like there's a couple 10 millimeters. I'm gonna do that off camera because, well, that's just you listening to an impact driver. That's never fun. There was a handful of like 8 millimeters. These two are 10, and there is another 10 in the back. So there's that. Another thing I'm noticing is there is a, I'll show you when you take this off. There's a solenoid on here. Oh, okay, good. I thought it was completely wrapped around. Might as well be. I'm going to move you so I don't knock you over. The R brand here. It's a little solenoid that will turn on and off the fuel. Thinking maybe that could be a problem as well. Don't know. Looks like the choke is both manually and it's manually operated, but there's also like a vacuum line, maybe to turn it off in case you forget to turn it off. So that's, in my opinion, just one more thing to mess up. But so far everything's looking fairly normal. Don't really have to worry about like Briggs. You have like a weird little special type of stud you have to do. It's just annoying. Take the gasket off. I'm going to turn the fuel to off, and then we will take that fuel line off. I forgot to push record, but I took the fuel line off. You don't really miss a whole lot of entertainment there. So let's go ahead, and this is kind of difficult for some people because if you just do this, linkage is not going to come out. What you end up having to do is you end up having to kind of wiggle it till right about there, and then you turn this. And maybe I could do this with you being able to see it, but it can now be lifted out, and then this little spring gets lifted from its little house, and then boom, done. Now usually we won't need a screwdriver for this. Yeah, we will in this one. I believe it's a Phillips head. Now when you do this, if you tip it over on the fuel inlet side, the only thing you're going to do is spill fuel. So I tip it over on the other side. Sometimes it still spills fuel, but yeah, it's still spilling a little bit, but not nearly as much. Ah, man, those things are in there. I got one. Okay. It's only half the battle, though. The worrisome part is, if you're working on stuff and being mechanical, you're probably gonna, scrape your finger, but you're trying not to look like a fisherman's knuckle here. There we go. There was a different saying about being scraped like a fisherman's knuckle, but I'm not gonna repeat it. Now at this point in time, it will leak. More than likely, so I'm gonna get like a little bowl and just have it prepared down here. Oh my god. Yeah. I was originally kind of worried about the solenoid because I don't technically hear it go, but at the same time, there is no battery power yet. I don't know. I don't think it's fine. This is the default position, I believe, for the fuel to be free and able to move throughout the jet. And then up, I do believe, is when it actually cuts it off. So I don't think we have any problem there. I think our main problem, if it's done leaking, I think our problem is going to be right there. So we obviously need to open up the carb. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and move everything out of the way. And we'll crack this bad boy open. See what type of nasties reside in there. There's my screwdriver. I have to take that off? Maybe. So it's not budging. Yeah, there we go. Of course, it's the 14 millimeter. Why wouldn't it be a 14 millimeter? Yeah, probably take that off. Appears to be holding it all together. Maybe if we get lucky, this is also a jet. To be completely honest, this is a different type of lower part of the carb. Oh my god, that's disgusting. Yeah. That is, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little hole right there. Fuel is supposed to travel in. Not a whole lot of fuel. It's going to be traveling in there. See how much easier it came off? Oh my god. Yeah. That's disgusting. I'm just going to shove that in there, and then we'll shove that in an ultrasonic cleaner. If you do not own an ultrasonic cleaner, then I would question your values. But you just have yet to purchase one, I can understand that. What you can do is you can definitely get a can of brake clean or carb clean and at least take off the bowl gasket, because that's rubber. And rubber and that type of cleaner do not work well together at all. In fact, it will pretty much ruin it. It will make it swell. And there's like remedies to make it not swell or to make sure, whatever, but it never really works, in my opinion. So the best thing to do is to just not have the problem and take it off. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't take it out and you don't have time or the resources to purchase a new one, and I would definitely recommend don't get any carb clean on that. This flathead screwdriver is basically a perfect fit. You want no tolerance. It needs to be a perfect fit for this jet. Because what ends up happening is if you give it a little bit of wiggle room, it will just strip out. Especially when you are having to clean it anyway, so it's naturally going to be dirty. So you don't want to give it the opportunity to strip out, because if you do that, oh, that's even horrible too. I'm just going to put that in there. Not that, because that's going to be a little more difficult. But yeah, you don't want to give any wiggle room, let's just say that. Let's see if we can take off this gasket without ripping it. The other gasket, well, I'm not going to say it's not important. If you rip this one, this will create a vacuum leak. The other one you can get away with in a pinch not using it. It's not a good idea not to use it, but you're not going to have a run problem. And when you do take off these gaskets, don't pull on it, just kind of pry it off. It usually comes off. There's this. Let's go ahead and take this off. Usually generators don't idle, but there is a switch over there that says it potentially could be idling. So what we're going to do is we're not going to wash this. It's dirty. As you can tell, we're going to screw it in until the dirt. I'll put it over there so we don't get everything else dirty. But basically that will be our witness mark. This is useless, it's just kind of like a cap. But what we want is down here. Usually if you pry up with a screwdriver on both ends, it will come up. You want to avoid using pliers because you can mar it up and then it just becomes really difficult to remove. So other than that, I'm going to put this in an ultrasonic cleaner and then we will come back. Well, got the bowl mostly clean. Not perfect, but the way it is. Having said that, this was truly disgusting. Even right now, it's still not 100%, but it's 99%. Close your ears. The reason why I say that is there's 2 large holes and then there's 4 smaller ones on the side, if you can tell. Got those pretty much done. I also took a sample of the fuel we put in there, see if there's any sediment in the bottom. I didn't see a single thing. When I put the fuel in there, the tank was completely clean, so I don't suspect that being too much of a problem. The carb, however, did turn out pretty nice, but I'm going to go ahead and blow dry it clean just to make sure there's no water. Now it's clean, let's go ahead and reassemble. Now, this looks stained, but all the passageways are clean, and everything should be good to go. Just going to take one last little look. Yep, everything looks fine. There's a difference between stained and dirty. Same thing with this jet. Looks perfect. Well, mostly perfect. It is stained still, like I said, but it's substantially better than it was before. What you're seeing on the paper towel beneath me isn't water, it's carb cleaner. I used a decent amount. Well, I guess technically it's brake parts cleaner, but Same basic thing. I prefer to use non-chlorinated when possible. One, if you weld with it, you know you should never use chlorinated anything when welding, and that's a good alternative for acetone. And I just feel like it's a better idea, so I do it. Now, let's go ahead and put the float back on. Just have to find that little needle wherever it decided to go. Right there. This is pretty bad. This is definitely going on the top dirty carbs of 2024. Granted, it's only like February, but it might stay on there for quite some time. I'm going to go ahead and blow through this, and then we'll make sure that's clean, but I don't suspect it's not going to be. There's a very small passageway in there, so it generally, however, doesn't get clogged. The part that does get clogged sometimes down in there, but that's not necessary for this style of carburetor. This screw is a drain. You always put the drain on the opposite end of the fuel inlet. So we have the float bowl, we have the jet I can see. Let's go ahead and put this back. And we'll give everything a nice pull. There was an O-ring that's attached to the bowl. I did not really do anything with. I did leave it on there because I didn't want to ruin it. So there's that. There was also an O-ring in here, but that one I might actually put on the solenoid just to make it a little easier for us. This is going to go back. Now, you can take this off. In order to do that, you have to grind this little nub off. I personally didn't do it just because unless you're going to start having an idle problem, that's really not going to fix too much. And we don't know if we have an idle problem. I mean, we could potentially have an idle problem, but I feel like this is what happened. Dude or dudette using the machine decide to turn it off and then just let the fuel stay in the bottom of the bowl and then drain the fuel out of the tank. Not really sure why, but they did. But then they forgot about the fuel in the bowl. So the carb on the top end isn't all that bad. It's almost all just being collected on the bottom, gravity, and cause problems. So let us go ahead and put everything back together. Hopefully there's enough light to see this. Fuel inlet. So it is going to go like this. Hole is in the top right. That makes sense. There's a little passageway, kind of like a little vent for the carb. That way it can breathe correctly. Kind of like trying to drain fuel from a sealed tank. Well, that's basically what is here. It's just a sealed tank, except it's not really a tank, but it still needs some type of ventilation. I just put this spring in that little hole, and that's its ventilation. Let's go ahead and attach the fuel line. Let's turn it on. Let's see if anything leaks before we do anything else. We're gonna, want to know what would help if we actually finish? Well, at least we flushed it. ahead and put that back on. Ooh. Let's find out. Luckily, this generator is pretty tall, so it shouldn't be that much of a problem. It's actually doing pretty good. You can pretty much drive them the entire way with just your fingers. That's a good sign. And we still have one more on the back end of it. This very well could also be the problem. It could be stuck, and then if it's stuck, it's not going to allow the fuel to be drawn into the throat of the carb. So that could also be a problem. Two ways of fixing that. You take it back off, you snip off that little piece that we were looking at earlier, the plunger, or you buy a new one. It does not need this to run. This is more like a backfire preventative. Imagine you were using this for a while, and next thing you know, you no longer need it, which, okay. Oh, this one's going to be the hard one. I can tell already. I need a shorter screwdriver. Anyway, and then next thing you know, you don't need it, and you turn it off. There's a lot of mass on the other end of the generator that can continue to spin. That spinning is going to move the piston up and down, but there'll be no spark. But it's still going to be sucking fuel. And when it's sucking fuel, it's not going to have anything to burn it. It's just going to suck that fuel out into the hot muffler, and it could potentially cause a backfire. So that's there to kind of help prevent that. So it's nice to have, just not needed. Now let's turn the fuel on. So far, so good. Let's chill a moment. We'll clean up some spilt fuel. Everything was dry. Fuel line's dry. This is dry. Everything appears to be dry. Float, or the inside of the throat of carb appears not to be overflowing or anything. So, I think we're pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and put this choke mechanism back on. I think we're a little medium lube. It might smoke a little when we first turn it on, but that's fine. I'm going to play with that, see what happens. So the little plunger was a little like stuck, but now it will go to full choke, and the plunger, when it actually pulls it back, will pull it back like so, and when you put it back, boom. So it's a weird little system, but I'm going to go ahead and put the cover on. The fuel's already on. We'll give it a pull and see if anything happens. We have it on the ground. Spark plug is in. Everything's nice and tight. The fuel has been on for quite some time. It is on the start position. That's how we're able to get it to actually have spark. So I'm thinking the key is misaligned. Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe they turned the key and kind of like shifted. So they thought they were turning it on, but then they didn't. And they kept pulling, put it in the back of the garage, took the fuel out for whatever reason, and then just left it. Don't know. But let's figure it out. Choke. Fuel is on. It is set to auto. That's weird. It wasn't leaking before. Now it does appear like it is leaking, but it works. It did kind of stumble a little bit towards the beginning in the auto mode, but let's see where this bad boy is leaking from. It kind of looks like it's leaking from inside the filter case. It is leaking inside the filter case. There's definitely a decent amount of fuel. Could be the fact that the choke is, or the float is stuck. Maybe moving it around got it stuck. It's just give it a few taps. See if maybe it just got lodged in there or something like that. Or not lodged, but like angled, and it's not able to make a good seal. So let's find out. I'm going to spend a little time trying to figure out what exactly is leaking. I might just have to take the bowl off one final time just to make sure. But other than that, this should be basically done. Yeah, so if you're having a problem with your, what was this, the EM6500? EB6500, then, no, it didn't stop, okay. Definitely check the carb, check the valves. We didn't really adjust the valves, but it didn't have a whole lot of compression before. Very well could have been sitting for such a long time that the just had a little bit of grime in the valve, or maybe the valves just need to be moved a little bit. Maybe they were just stuck open, who knows. But I'm going to go ahead and figure out what exactly is causing this leak, and then I'll meet you on the next video. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Definitely leave a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll be happy to help. If you need personalized help, consider becoming a member. That is a perk. I'll be happy to help. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that, and maybe I'll make a video, maybe not, who knows, but I'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.